And he also informed me that he had spoken to my mother during that phone conversation, and he told me that he spoke to my mother, and that he'd spoken to my mother about filing a missing persons report about me. And effectively, what he was trying to do was he was trying to guilt me into the fact, or guilt me about the fact that I hadn't spoken to my mother about my whereabouts at that point. And the reason why I hadn't spoken to my mother about my whereabouts at that point was because I had already known that, or already suspected that he had been in touch with her. And that it was more than likely that he had been in touch with her to, like, what I determined at that point was that it was more than likely that he had been in touch with her to try to force me to live in a circumstance like I've been living in now for like the last 10 months, where his intentions with my life were to exploit me, if nothing else. If he couldn't frame me, that he still had intentions with my life to exploit me for every last thing that he could get out of me. And that he had convinced my mother to be part of that. That's why I didn't tell my mother where I was. That's why I didn't speak to her very much while I was out in San Diego. Because at that point I had figured that she was part of that circumstance, that and that she didn't share the same values. She didn't share the same knowledge. She didn't share the same feelings. She didn't share the same anything about everything that he tried to do to me, about the notion that I had and still have of his character, about the but moreover, I didn't suspect that my mother, and she doesn't, would ever respect what I wanted to do with my life, and what I wanted to do with my life in the context of how I had to change what I wanted to do with my life, because I refused to be exploited, and I refused to be disrespected, and I refused to allow somebody with no moral or ethical integrity to exploit me and exploit my research and exploit my creative works for his own gain, both in power or in finances. I refuse to allow that to happen. And my mother doesn't feel the same way. I know that that's the case. My mother is somebody who absolutely does not feel the same way, because she is party to the circumstance that I live within, and that circumstance is only orchestrated by Dave and potentially some of his coworkers or ex-coworkers. Because I suspect that when he tried to frame me, he was actually reported for it, discovered for it, and that he was either reprimanded or fired or one of the two. I don't actually know if he's retired. I think he may have been retired temporarily, and then, or rather, I think he was reprimanded, and then maybe after a certain time period, he was probably offered his job back, or would have been offered his job back, but maybe he did decide to retire ultimately. I don't know for sure. I do think that it's possible that he actually did retire after, I think it's possible that he actually decided to retire after he opened the trunk of my car to, without asking me, to effectively steal sources for the research and work that I do without speaking to me about it. I think that that's when he decided to retire from his career, to make that his full-time job instead, to steal from me. I think that if he is retired, that's when it happened. That's why it actually happened. Not because he was actually done with his job, or because he wanted to be done with his job, only because he probably wanted to be done with his job once he realized that my research and my work was legitimate, to the point where it might actually be something that he could leverage and exploit to gain power and financial financial backing for his own life. I think that's the case. Um, and all of that, every last bit of what I've spoken about, um, has led me to be incredibly angry, or rather, to have the capacity to be incredibly angry, to be emotionally violent in a reciprocal way towards him, and towards other people who I know have been cooperating with him in this circumstance that my life is in, and in the circumstance that my life is in, only by way of being exploitative of a legal case that I have been put in, that I was put in at some point, that the people surrounding that legal case, seemingly, Dave Withers himself included in that, seemingly always knew that I didn't belong in that legal case. But that legal case seems to be the basis and the foundation of being able to legally justify monitoring every single aspect of my life and eroding every single bit of privacy in my life, both digitally but also by way of actually just spying on me by video observation in any way that's possible, be it security cameras around town, be it traffic cameras, be it satellite observation, digital observation, anything. Observing my laptop, observing my phone, what have you. Observing my network traffic, observing my, the things that I do or don't watch on cable television or streaming services, observing what I listen to on Spotify, manipulating what I see on Facebook or how I see it, manipulating what I see on Twitter or how I see it, manipulating the entire world around me, effectively, to justify his own means to an end with me, and justify his own means to an end with his own life and his greed, his pursuit of greed regarding finances and power, and trying to exploit me and hold me, effectively try to hold me in the United States, or try to hold me in a country that is an ally to the United States, so that he can continue to observe me for the rest of my life and steal from me for his own gain. Dave Withers is not a man that anybody should trust with power, but that's what he wants and that's what he sees. I have no finances beyond, I have probably $80 remaining on a gift card that was given to me a couple of days ago. The reason why is because he doesn't want me to be able to live a life of my own of my own choosing happily. And what I mean is, there are finances available. I know this to be certain. But effectively, I have to communicate beforehand why I might want access to those finances, and then it is determined whether or not those reasons are acceptable, or the financial expenditures that I would like to make are acceptable to him. And effectively, the reason why that is because he's trying to keep me in a circumstance where I always have time to think about or have things put in my mind about politics, about military, global military operations, current global military operations, or or whatever regarding geopolitics, just anything that he could use to exploit, by way of trying to pick my brain about it. Um, Effectively, Dave Withers doesn't want me to. He doesn't want me to have to expend my time in the ways that are healthy and healthiest for me. And it's to the point where I can't go do anything outside of my house for the most part for more than a day, maybe 2 days, without having people surrounding my life, where he's trying to put things in my mind so that eventually I'll start talking about those things instead of being able to just live my life unfucked with. Or instead of just being able to live my life the way that I'd like to. Because effectively, he thinks he has a right to grill me on every last thing that I've ever done, said, or not done and said. And he doesn't have that right. Matter of fact, Dave doesn't have the right to do anything to my life, but he has given himself the legal right, and he still exploits it to this day. To the point where, not only that, but he also seems to think that he can draw into question whether or not I've ever purchased Bitcoin, which I have not. Never purchased, sent, received, traded Bitcoin. Never possessed Bitcoin. But and the only time that actually comes up is when he has the notion that I could potentially leave the United States of America without him being able to monitor me. And the only way that he's able to legally justify that is by being lazy. Because effectively, my ex-wife and I shared a bank account that he has every ability to search through, but, for any sort of traces of me ever purchasing or having any activity relating to, crypto coin of any regard, he has the ability to search the bank accounts that all of the bank accounts and financial accounts that I've ever had access to, but he's choosing to not do that. He's choosing to not do that because that's what gives him the ability to justify calling that stuff into question and effectively saying, hey, effectively what he's trying to communicate is, hey, if you want to leave the country without me having the ability to monitor you, you're not going to be able to do that, because I can effectively just say, hey, I suspect that you might have Bitcoin, and so if you try to apply for a passport, I'm going to know about it, and I'm going to get in touch with the with the appropriate offices to deny that passport, by way of you not declaring or not doing any sort of financial justification. I'm sorry, financial I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Without you effectively proving through your own financial history that you in fact did not purchase any Bitcoin, and I can just kind of say that that's something that I could always be suspicious of regarding you for the rest of your life if I choose to do that, because I'm not gonna do you any favors and search through your financial accounts, your historical financial accounts for you. Why would I do that? I'm here to exploit you for as long as I possibly can. That's effectively what he's trying to do to my life. And he's trying to do that to my life because he is power hungry, because he is greedy for money and power. And he knows my intelligence level. He knows that my intelligence level is not something that he knows that, without me, he has nothing. And without me, he has nothing to the point where, he's still begging effectively for more information from me about my research that, if it weren't for him, hey, maybe I would be happier to share that stuff